Gute Woche, freiliche Woche. Just read in the Torah today about how Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem that the Jewish people should not be like a sheep without a shepherd, and that Hashem should appoint someone to succeed the Jewish sheep, to succeed him as leader of the Jewish people, and that is why Hashem gave Moshe Rabbeinu the Yeshua as the successor, who the Torah describes as Ish Ruach, by a man who had a spirit in him. As Nachmanides explains, he was able to reach each person according to who they were, according to what was going on in their life. So on that note, I wanted to share the following story, which Rabbi Zeilengold shares in his book called Clear Vision. Rabbi Zeilengold, Rebbe's emissary in a congregation in Minnesota, wrote a book about his experience there, and he wrote about how at a one Farbrengen that he'd visited the Rebbe for in the 1970s, the Rebbe suddenly called him over and asked him to bring a piece of cake to a young woman with special needs in St. Paul. The woman's family were members of the conservative temple called the Temple of Aaron. And Rebbe asked him if he could bring this piece of cake to this young woman. She had special needs, and Rabbi Zeilengold had no connection at all to this woman and to her family, and he was surprised that the Rebbe gave him this instruction and what it meant. So when he came back, he informed the family that the Rebbe sent a piece of cake for her, and the mother called Rabbi Zeilengold a few days later, and she said that very frantically, she came to him and she said, "I don't know what to do, but my daughter refuses to eat the cake." She said, "This cake is from a holy man, and I'm scared to eat it. So I don't know what we're supposed to do over here. My daughter doesn't want, the Rebbe sent this cake special for her, but she doesn't want to eat it. What should we do?" So Rabbi Zeilengold didn't think too much, and he said, "No, I'll ask the Rebbe what to do." And as soon as he said that, though, he's like, "I should bother the Rebbe about the cake he sent to this girl. Did I really need to bother him?" But the Rebbe responded, and the Rebbe said she should hold it with a glove. Now, the family had already asked the psychiatrist for different ideas, and the psychiatrist says, "There's nothing, I have no idea." He gave different ideas of what might work, and nothing worked. But the Rebbe's advice immediately did work. Isha Sharuach Bay, being able to relate to each person according to who they are and where they are. This woman, for reasons known to the Rebbe, needed to have this cake. And the Rebbe knew not only to send the cake to her, but also to tell her how she in her condition with special needs, not being able to appreciate what's going on exactly, be able to receive this gift and to enjoy it. There is throughout generations of Chassidim and Rebbes, many stories about how a Rebbe is able to know exactly what each person needs according to who they are. I heard a story today of a certain Mrs. Rifkin, who every time she had a baby, unfortunately, the baby died at childbirth or very young, and she asked Rebbe Marash what she should do. Rebbe Marash said to her that as soon as her next baby is born, she should immediately get the baby's ear pierced and put silver in the baby's ear and the silver ring and this your silver earring, and the baby should always wear it for his entire lifetime. And this baby, Baruch Hashem, survived and lived many years, and he actually got a position at a congregation in America. And interestingly, there's a letter from the previous Rebbe to this Rabbi Rifkin, who asked the Rebbe that the community wants him to wear a top hat. That was a custom in that community, and he didn't think it was such a Hasidic thing to do, and he was wondering if he should wear the top hat or not. And the previous Rebbe told him he should, but he won't be affected by it. And as you could see in pictures of this Rabbi Rifkin, that yes, he's wearing a top hat, but he's really not into the culture and vogue of American society. He is connected. Fascinatingly, he passed away the day before Yom Kippur, and they found him on the steps of the synagogue. And for whatever reason, the earring was not in his ear. Perhaps he went to the mikveh and took the earring off for the mikveh or Yom Kippur, whatever it was, but the earring was not in his ear. And so this is what the Rebbe saw, that this was what this soul needed. Yochel halach negruchish kol echad ve'echad. That is the role of a Jewish leader, to give each Jew what that Jew needs and how that Jew needs it. I wanted to share tonight the story of the Rebbe's Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah that the Rebbe would use when he would dance on the night of Simchas Torah, and was used on various occasions on holidays. The Rebbe read the maftir from. Where does the Sefer Torah come from, and why did it? How did it arrive in the Rebbe's hands? So there was a great tzaddik whose name was Pinchas Karetzer. Pinchas Karetzer was a student of the Mezritcher Maggid, a colleague of the Alter Rebbe, and he was a Rebbe in his own right. And his son, Rabbi Moshe, began a printing press. His son's printing press was succeeded by his grandchildren. One of the grandchildren was named after the grandfather of Pinchas Shapiro, and his brother Rab Shmuel Abba Shapiro. Their printing press was blessed. This is the famous printing press that also printing press of Slavita, for Achim Shapiro, which was also uniquely the printing press that printed the Gemara, and also many other works. One day in the 1830s, a worker at their printing press was discovered hung up in the shul. And because this worker had previously accused the government, I previously informed the government of wrongdoings that these brothers had done in the printing press, so suspicion fell upon them. Although this person was clearly a little deranged, and what more probably happened was commit suicide, nevertheless, these brothers were arrested for several years. And while they were arrested, they were not allowed legal counsel or to see anybody. And at the end of these years of imprisonment, they were brought out and they were sentenced to remove all their rights as citizens and to be sent for hard labor in Siberia, torture. The Tsar Nikolai, who was it's no secret that of his anti-Semitism. So Nikolai signed their sentence, and he added next to his name, "This is what should happen to them." And in addition to all this, the governor of that region, who was also a rabbi and anti-Semite, he added something to their sentence. That was that these two brothers should be given 1,500 lashes. They should be brought between a gauntlet of 500 soldiers, and each soldier should strike them with a pole as they were walking through, and they had to go through these 500 soldiers 3 times. So I don't know exactly how it was possible for them to survive, but survive they did. And not only did they survive, but there is a tradition that one of the brothers, Malka, fell off, and he stopped, and he didn't continue going. He kept on getting beaten because he wanted to put his yarmulke back on. He put his yarmulke back on, and these brothers were sent to Siberia. On the way to Siberia, the train stopped in Moscow, and the local police and local government saw the way that they were mistreated, For some reason, they felt terrible for them, and they allowed various artifacts, Jewish artifacts and food and drink to be brought to them. Um, they allowed them, as their grandson writes in his memoirs, they were allowed to have kiddush, wine, and they were allowed to have food, and they also were allowed, they gave them also the permission to bring a Torah into their prison. Now, these brothers knew that the prison was no place for a Torah because of the stench and other conditions in the prison. And so therefore, instead of making the irias, the parchments that were brought into the prison, were brought in piecemeal, but they did not put them together to make a real Sefer Torah. They appreciated having these parchments and reading from them in the prison, but they never made it into a Sefer Torah because of the question of the sanctity of the Torah in such a place. So after this several decade story of eventually Tafish Tezayin, I believe in 1865, the Tsar died, and through the efforts of the community, they they managed to procure the freedom of these two brothers, and their Sefer Torah was made into a real Sefer Torah, into a proper Sefer Torah, and it was kept in the family for generations. The a cousin of the previous Rebbe, descendant of these brothers, wrote about this Torah to the previous Rebbe. Very interesting. For some very interesting facts about this Torah. The ink for the Torah was used by ink that was sent by the famous tzaddik Shmelk of Nikolsburg. His sons brought the ink for this Torah. There was another tzaddik named Rabbi Michal of Zlotchev, who also commissioned the Sefer Torah. And the Kozhen Magid wanted to have the merit of the Eitz Chaim. He wanted the parchment is wrapped around two I don't know the right word in English is two rollers, two poles of wood, of silver, of gold, of whatever it is. And so Milchel Zach Sefer Torah, he needed to have those rollers for the Sefer Torah, the Eitz Chaim. So he was gifted Eitz Chaim from a Pinchas from Kozhen Magid. And when his community heard in Zlotchev that the Kozhen Magid was sending him Eitz Chaim, they felt they should have this merit, and they made their own Eitz Chaim form out of silver. And Michal Zlotchev chose to use the Eitz Chaim from his community, but he made this remark. He said, "These Eitz Chaim that was made by the Kozhen Magid will eventually belong to great tzaddikim." That's what he said. And so that's those Eitz Chaim were put into the Sefer Torah. And so Rabbi Moshe Ashkenazi, living in Israel, got in touch with the Shapiro family, who were cousins with the previous Rebbe, and he thought that it would be wonderful to give this as a gift to the Rebbe, and he managed to borrow the funds and to buy this Torah. He was the rabbi of Tel Aviv, and it was clear from the writing of the previous Rebbe that this was that he want this Torah, but wasn't able to afford it, and so the Shapiro family was requesting a sum of 500 lira in exchange for Sefer Torah, which is a lot of money at the time. Rabbi Ashkenazi borrowed the money, and he sent the Torah to the Rebbe as a gift in time for Shoshana in Tavshin Tezvav in 1955. The Rebbe expressed deep gratitude to Rabbi Ashkenazi for the Torah, and the Rebbe wrote this: "I would like to take this opportunity to convey my greatest and deepest thanks to the Sefer Torah that arrived here just days prior to Rosh Hashanah, and we read from this Torah on Rosh Hashanah. It says in the Zohar, just as God looked at the Torah before creating the world, in other words, the Torah is a blueprint for creation, and with the Torah, God made the world. So just like this is true for the world, that the world is created by the Torah, so too is it true for every Jew. Every Jew builds his individual world through reading in a Sefer Torah. So may it be God's will, the Rebbe concluded, that during this year, you, your spouse, and your offspring should merit to have a new world filled with revealed good. Rebbe wrote about how not only the one who reads the Torah, but those who help to bring the Torah also, it brings them to a new world. Um, there was on one occasion, Rebbe spoke about how the different parts of the Torah. There's the inner part of the Torah, and there's the revealed parts of the Torah. The inner dimension, the Zohar, um, introduces every teaching with the words "come and see." The Gemara introduces every teaching as "come and hear." So Chassidus explains that in the Talmud, God is not openly revealed. The subject matter of the Talmud are the laws of the Talmud, the philosophy of the laws, anecdotes, proofs, back and forth, questions, answers. But Hashem himself, his presence, isn't revealed. He's heard about. Versus in the Zohar, Hashem is openly revealed in the Zohar. The Zohar is talking only about Hashem and the souls and the Jewish people and the significance of the spiritual significance of every part of the Torah. So that's why the Zohar uses the expression "come and see," versus the Gemara uses the expression "come and hear," because in the Zohar Hashem is seen. So everyone said that just like in the Zohar, Hashem's presence is revealed, so too when a Jew studies the inner dimension of Torah, since God creates our world with the Torah that we study, so when you study the inner dimension of Torah, that causes Hashem to be revealed in your life. When you study the part of the Torah where Hashem is concealed, so that doesn't bring revelation of Hashem in your life in the same way as when you study the part of the Torah where Hashem is revealed. So specifically by studying the inner dimension of Torah, the soul of the Torah, that's where God is revealed. That causes in our life as well for Hashem's presence to be revealed in our life. This is especially relevant as we're coming from Parshas Baloscha, and we read the Haftorah, "Rejoice and be happy, daughter of Tzion." So the Chassidus explains that the word Tzion refers to the righteous, tzaddikim. The daughter of Tzion means being connected to tzaddikim. And so the verse is saying, by being connected to a tzaddik, that causes revelation of Hashem in your life to the point that there's a reason to be happy, that Hashem brings you happiness, that you see Hashem's presence in your life and you're happy. And not only you're happy because of the Hashem's presence in your life, but the connection to the tzaddik also brings that there's a reason to celebrate the physical side of our lives as well. Our children, our health, our income should also be in a state of joy and happiness. That's what in the merit of connection to a tzaddik, there is revelation of Hashem in our lives. So this connection to the tzaddik is especially through learning the teachings of a tzaddik. So not only does, as the Zohar says, "come and see," is Hashem's divine providence more revealed by studying the inner dimension of Torah, but the studying the inner dimension of Torah also brings us joy for another reason. As a verse says, "Rejoice and be happy, sing and be happy, daughter of Tzion." By connecting to tzaddikim, connecting to a tzaddik, it causes a blessing in all areas of life, and it removes the concealments of Hashem in our lives and reveals Hashem's presence in our life. So, in addition to stories mentioned before, where we saw the Rucha Shalach Avacha, that the Rebbe reaches out to each person according to what's going on in their life, and the fascinating story of the Rebbe's Torah, through which the Rebbe's told Rabbi Ashkenaz, this will bring him, just by bringing this to the Rebbe, this brings him personal blessing in his own life, or a new world for him. So I wanted to share one more story that Rabbi Zeingold shared in his book. Rabbi Zeingold knew a family from Panama that was having a very hard time with their domestic harmony between each other. And the husband was in the garment industry. Their marriage was pretty much broken, and the wife wanted to move back to Panama. She asked for a divorce, but the husband refused to give one. So many months of the year, the husband was out on business, and perhaps the marriage suffered because of that. But anyways, one day, Rabbi Rangel received an urgent call to go to the town where the husband was living. When he arrived, he was told that the husband had tried to commit suicide. The husband really didn't want his wife to move back to Panama because he said that if the family moved back to Panama, he wouldn't have to see them. Maybe once or twice a year. He couldn't fathom the idea. So when his wife refused to listen to him, he decided to put pressure on her by threatening to commit suicide. And it didn't work. And so Rezango tried to explain to him that maybe the family won't visit you that often. You could visit them more often. You could visit them, you could travel to Panama. And he suggested he write a letter to Rebbe. And he told him no one will read the letter, just the Rebbe himself. The Rebbe responded a few points. First of all, Rebbe said that reconciliation would be the best thing for the couple. The husband claimed he can never be with his wife, and he spelled out his reasons in his letters to Rebbe. The Rebbe disagreed, feeling that reconciliation was the best option. The Rebbe said that if they reconciled, the family should encourage the wife to continue to live in the United States, and if all worked out, he blessed them to live for many years together and bring their children to marriage. And if God forbid they could not reconcile, the husband should immediately give her a divorce. The community then should try to find someone else suitable for this man. He delivered the Rebbe's message, and the couple soon moved out of town. He said, I didn't hear from them for years. But one day this man came to Rabbi Zangel's house and told him they are still married and living in Los Angeles here. And they'd purchased a home, and their children go to Jewish schools. And they'd taken the Rebbe's advice, and they had found a way to carry on as a couple. I find this story especially fascinating because you hear the story on the surface. This guy's out to lunch, he's committing suicide to pressure his wife. And instead of seeing the story in the face value, the Rebbe, as the tzaddik of the generation, knows each person and what they are, what's going on inside them. And the Rebbe is able, with divine inspiration, to say what the right move forward is. And I mean, when you hear the story, you'd think the last thing the wife would agree to reconcile, not only the husband. The Rebbe gave a clear guidance to them, which brought them, and they listened, which brought them good fortune in their life. And the same is also for all of us, following the Rebbe's instruction gives guidance in our life, as we just read today in the Torah about the clouds the Jewish people followed in the desert. So too in our lives, the cloud is the Torah, especially the Torah that we have through the Rebbe's teachings, the Rebbe's Torah. This is the cloud that we have that leads us towards Eretz Yisrael, towards Mashiach. We see this happen, the coming of Mashiach, Mekarav Mamish. A good